Welcome back to another little entry into my Friday the Top 13 series where I do a random ranking of 13 horror films. And this one is going to be another entry into like my new decade little series I've got going here. So today we're going to be doing the top 13 horror films of the year 2010. All right, coming in at number 13. Number 13 is a film that is directed by a guy with the very unfortunate name of Nimrod Antal. This is the guy that brought us a Vacancy a couple of years prior. This is Predators. And Predators, this is obviously the 2010 one, the one of the newer ones, newer sequels. And this one, a group of, I guess you can call them combatants, some randomly selected warriors of Earth, have been abducted and brought to this alien planet where they're being hunted by three predators for sport. So not only are they, trying to survive uh, the hunt, they're also trying to survive this alien planet, which really resembles a tropical forest, but is completely littered with traps and that kind of stuff, and it's very alien to them. So, yeah, very very fun. Um, the acting is mixed in quality, but there's enough action and um, sequences that keep you interested throughout the film. So it's one that I was surprised at how much I liked it. That's Predators. This film might seem a little bit rushed, or this video might seem a little bit rushed because I'm trying to keep it a little shorter than usual. So number 12 is a Finnish film called Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. And in this one, it is about, or it starts off with a kind of a mining company working atop a mountain that are digging through. And little do they know that the mountain itself is kind of a big prison mound for something that's kept underneath it. And obviously, with the drilling, it has been released from that prison. A creature that resembles Santa Claus, or I guess the Santa Claus myth was based on this creature. And obviously, it kind of follows this Finnish family, and they're kind of reindeer reindeer hunters that supply the local like reindeer slaughterhouse. That's kind of their food supply up there. This is in the Arctic, mind you, and so they find a bunch of reindeer carcasses. Something has been hunting them, and so they decide to lay traps, trying to catch whatever is doing this. They think it's a wolf, but catch this Santa Claus looking being, and it kind of goes. The story develops from there and takes some twists and turns from there. So pretty fun. It was my first time watching this during the holidays, so it was pretty interesting seeing that. It's called Rare Exports. All right, my number 11, or my last honorable mention to my top 10, I guess, would be a found footage film, and it's one it was very popular when it came out that year. It's called The Last Exorcism. So this is a film directed by German filmmaker Daniel Stamm, who after this film kind of went into the TV business, directed episodes of Fear the Walking Dead and the Scream TV show. So in this film, it follows a evangelist priest who specializes in exorcisms, and he's obviously he fakes the exorcisms. He rigs them to look like they're real possessions. So he's kind of lost his faith in the church and decides to kind of hire this film crew to follow him around during his very last job as an exorcist. And so obviously he meets this little girl who her dad is claiming to be she's possessed, and it's a really weird family. Very they just lost their mother, so they're very isolated in this farm, and they're strange. But so he goes in there and rigs the place to look like a real possession. Kind of uh, puts a device on the bed that'll make it shake and makes it so the lights flicker. So he has a fake exorcism basically, and leaves, but then discovers that it doesn't work, of course. So he comes back and then tries to make the father believe she suffers from a mental illness rather than a demonic possession. And all hell kind of breaks loose from there, all leading up to a very kind of epic feeling for a found footage film, a very epic feeling finale. So yeah, very cool, very popular film for that year. I like it. Not probably not as much as other people seem to, but I am a fan of that one. So it's The Last Exorcism. All right, going into my top 10. Number 10 is a Canadian film by a Greek Canadian filmmaker called Panos Cosmatos. He's the guy who brought us or directed Mandy from a couple of years ago, a film that I really enjoyed. This film is called Beyond the Black Rainbow. So this film kind of follows or takes place in a institute or research facility that was founded back in the 60s by kind of like a group of hippies who wanted to find a link between science and spirituality, as I've read via Wikipedia, trying to understand the plot of this. It's a little confusing film, but gorgeous to look at. Absolutely gorgeous. So this film is it follows kind of this deranged doctor who is the head of this facility in modern days, and his obsession with a female captive there who's kind of kept locked up in the hospital, who has kind of telepathic abilities. So yeah, very interesting. Feels like a fever dream the entire way through. Very artsy. Lots of beautiful colors and cinematography. And yeah, if you want to check that one out, it's on Shudder. It's called the Beyond the Black Rainbow. All right, number 9 is a Norwegian film by director Andre Overdahl, who you might recognize the name. He directed another film that I really like called Autopsy of Jane Doe, and a few years ago he directed a film that I thought was okay called Stories to or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I think it was called, based on the child books. But this one here is called Troll Hunter, and another found footage film from this year. This one I liked more than the other one. This one follows a group of students who are working on a project for university. They've heard some complaints from the locals about the possibility of a poacher in the area that's killing off their game, and so they set out to find this alleged poacher and interview him for whatever project they're doing for school. And so when they do find him, he claims to be a troll hunter, which was a very secretive role in the government. And kind of when he's kind of old now, he's been doing it for years, and he's like, all right, this is kind of like the last leg of my career here. So he agrees to have the kids follow him, documenting his job, and of course they don't believe him initially until they go out and find some trolls, real live trolls. So yeah, very fun. The creatures are cool. A lot of CGI. There's no practical effects, but not CGI that's so bad that it takes you out of the film completely. It's okay, but it's a lot more about the atmosphere and kind of the actual adventure of finding these trolls, right? So one that I enjoyed a lot called Troll Hunter. Next up is a film, kind of one of those films that takes place in one location. There's a few that came out this year, but this one is by far my favorite one. It's a film directed by Adam Green, who brought us the Hatchet films. Hatchet 2 actually came out this year, but I've actually never seen any of the Hatchet sequels, so it's not on this list. But his other film that came out this year is Frozen. So this is a film about some young, I think they're students, university students, and they go out to this ski resort on the weekend, and they spend the day, snowboarding and skiing, and they try to sneak in just one last run for the night, and they take the ski lift up the mountain, but they are forgotten about, and obviously the ski lift it stops, and they're stuck there. And this is one of those ski resorts that's not open on the week, so there's a weekend only kind of resort or a ski park, and so they're stuck on the ski lift, just up in the air, and of course they're facing the elements. There's a snowstorm, and down below they have to deal with some ravenous wolves that inhabit this mountain. So yeah, uh, like I said, a film that kind of takes place all in that ski lift or in the area around it near the kind of the beginning. You see them having fun and stuff, but most of the film is on this ski lift, ski chair. I don't know what you call those, but yeah, and it's just their struggle to survive the elements and trying to figure out a way down. So I thought it was very thrilling. I guess it's more considered a thriller than a horror, but it's one that I really enjoyed. So if you haven't checked that out, it's called Frozen. Number 7 is a film directed by Darren Aronofsky, who years ago directed Requiem for a Dream. And a few years ago, he directed the very divisive film called Mother. This is Black Swan. Black Swan is more of another kind of artsier film. It follows a young ballerina who lands the lead role in a new concert or a new play, whatever you call those, for ballet. And so it's kind of, it follows her in her, I guess, quote unquote descent into madness when she starts to obsess over her role in the play, and starts to hallucinate, sees doppelgangers, that kind of thing. I'm not gonna ruin it, but yeah, one that I enjoyed a lot called Black Swan. Number 6 is I guess the first remake of this list. Not a full-on remake, an Americanized remake of a Swedish film. I think it's Swedish. Yeah, Swedish. It's this one's called Let Me In, which is the readaptation of Let the Right One In, a novel by John Lindqvist, who had been made into a Swedish film after its release. So yeah, Let Me In is directed by Matt Reeves, who we knew as the director of Cloverfield before this film came out, and then later went on to direct some of the Planet of the Apes films. But Let Me In follows this a young girl who lives in this apartment complex. I guess it follows these two little kids, a boy and a girl, who live in this apartment complex, and they're kind of their a heartwarming tale of them becoming friends despite the little girl being a vampire who goes out at night and feeds and kills people, and it's kind of their relationship blossoming and kind of taking a weird turn near the end there, kind of a twist on why this vampire is befriending this human, right? I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you like vampire films and kind of these little coming of age kid films, yeah, this is a really good one called Let Me In. And now going into my top 5, number 5 is another remake, called The Crazies. This is a remake of the George Romero film of the same name. This is one of those films where I would argue that the remake is better than the original. And so this film it takes place in this small little town, and a military plane crashes in the woods nearby this town, and its kind of cargo spills into the water supply for the town, and it starts to contaminate people, or starts to infect people with this disease. This is kind of a biological weapon called Trixie, and it was that was being transported somewhere, and so that's what gets into the water, and it turns people into kind of these mindless freaking beings of violence. These, you know, Neanderthals that are not really, but they're just kind of, they're like zombies kind of, but they're not dead. They're just kind of just hyper violent, but they're still able, they're still capable of intelligent thought. It's just they're very clouded, and they're just all super angry and want to kill stuff. So, and this film follows a couple who they're trying to escape this town. They're trying to avoid the infected, which are obviously trying to kill everything, and the military who have been deployed there, who have been ordered to kill off the populace in order to stop the spread of this kind of disease, or whatever you call it. So that's my number 5. It's called The Crazies. Number 4 through 1 are films that I absolutely adore, and I would consider to be required viewing for horror fans. But starting with my number 4, it is a film I don't own yet, but it's a South Korean film called Bedeviled. So this film is a very sad film. It starts off with this woman who's kind of stressed out with her job, and kind of snaps at somebody, one of her coworkers. So she's kind of ordered to take a vacation, kind of a stress leave. So she does so, and decides to visit her hometown, which is actually situated on a small island off the coast of South Korea. And when she's back there, she meets up with her childhood best friend, who she hasn't kept in touch with since moving. And then kind of the focus shifts on her friend who's been living on that island, who's not treated very well by anybody there. She's abused by her husband, and all the people that live on this island is mean to her. But she's kept sane. She's kept sane by the fact that she's taking care of her young daughter, and eventually something happens to the daughter, and then she completely snaps. So it kind of follows her and her descent into madness, murderous rage. So a very, very fun film, and one that I would recommend anybody to watch. It's called Bedeviled. Okay, number 3 is a film that's probably the most recognizable of my list. And it's probably my wife's top film of this year, by James Wan. This is Insidious. Of course, James Wan being the mastermind behind Saw and the Conjuring franchise, right? So Insidious follows this family who live in this house. The little boy in the family falls into a coma, and when this begins, some supernatural things, some supernatural events take place in the house, some apparitions, that kind of thing, and then they decide to bring in this medium played by Lin Shaye, and who determines that the boy is actually the one in the coma, is actually the person haunted, not the house so much. And it's their struggle in trying to bring the boy back from his coma. And I'm not going to tell you how that happens. If you haven't seen the film, you got to check it out. It's a very popular one, and one that I really enjoy. It's called Insidious. My number 2 is another South Korean film directed by Kim Ji-woon, who had brought us the fantastic Tales of Two Sisters. This film was a first-time watch for me, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It is called I Saw the Devil. Such a fun film. It is a revenge film, and it follows this guy who his fiance is abducted and murdered by a serial killer. So he figures out who the killer is, and instead of outright killing him, he decides to kind of beat him up, put a tracker on him, and then follow him around. Every time he does something bad, he shows up and mangles him in some way, and hurts him, and then releases him again, just to kind of turn his life into a living hell. And eventually the killer finds out what's going on, kind of flips it, and turns him into the aggressor once again. And it's just a roller coaster ride full of action. If you haven't seen this film, I highly, highly recommend it. It's called I Saw the Devil. I really considered putting I Saw the Devil as my number one, but then I started to consider which film I thought was the funnest, which one I see myself watching over and over again the most. So my number one is a horror comedy by the name of Tucker and Dale versus Evil. I have this little 2-pack here with Cabin in the Woods. I really need to update or upgrade this to Blu-ray eventually. But Tucker and Dale versus Evil, a film about these two blue-collar guys who have recently bought a kind of a summer house in the woods. So they're traveling there, and all the while they come across this group of university students or college kids who are also in town just as a camping and hanging out. And this group of kids mistakenly take our two protagonists as killer hillbillies. So it's kind of their struggles and of the two characters' struggles in surviving these college kids who have some reason determined that these two are psychopaths living in the woods. So just hilarious films. The kills are hilarious, and just the dialogue itself is very, very quotable. And yeah, a film that I've watched over and over again. It's one of my favorite horror comedies ever made. So that's Tucker and Dale versus Evil. That is my top 13 for this week. What other films would you recommend that I watch? I know there's a ton of ones that I haven't seen yet that I really want to check out. I mentioned Hatchet too. There's another South Korean film that I really wanted to watch. I just didn't have the time to, called Cold Fish, which seems really fun as well. But yeah, let me know what you guys like from 2010, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.